I'm Henry Duncan, president of the Kentucky Woodland Owners Association. We have several issues that we're dealing with. Kentucky Woodland Owners have, we've been kind of taken for granted as far as timber goes in relation to other agricultural commodities. So we have several issues that we're concerned with, and one of those is timber theft. Timber theft is a very important issue. Of course, the fire season is on us right now, and that's a real concern too. Anything that causes woodland owners to lose their valuable timber, whether it be fires or thefts, or to be cheated at the market, we are concerned with that because that's a real problem. I know I have read and heard so many stories from our woodland owners who have actually had timber stolen. And it is a devastating thing. One of the timber owners told me, he said, Henry, it's just like having someone come into your house and go through your chests of drawers and your safes and steal those things from you and leave. Said you feel like you've really been invaded. He said the same thing as when they come and steal my timber, logs. He said it's a devastating thing and you just don't get over it. And the ones that I have talked with have not been able to get it resolved. They've actually had the sheriffs involved and they've taken it to the grand jury. They can't. The ones I have talked with have not been able to get a conviction, and they just left devastated. Personally, several years ago, when my mother was still alive, and she was a widow on the farm, and we would visit with her on occasions. We came down one weekend and she said, you know, I think something is occurring up in the woods. I said, what do you mean? She said, there's been some trucks that we see go in and out, our neighbors. So I went up and looked, and sure enough, a neighbor had dealt with a logger to cut timber on the neighbor's farm, and they had gotten over on my mother's place. And they had cut considerable amount of timber. And all I saw was the stumps there. Since I was working out of the county, I hadn't been there that often. Had no idea that it was going on. The only thing we saw was the skid rows and the roads where they had dragged that timber out. So, of course, I went to the landowner and they told me who they had dealt with to cut the timber. So I immediately went to them. And we had a long discussion, and it was very embarrassing because this was also one of the neighbors in the neighborhood who had cut the timber. So we were dealing with neighbors, and it became very emotional, very threatening, and my mother said, oh, I don't want to make my neighbors mad. I said, well, Mom, I said, your timber's gone and we need to do something about it. So we put some pressure, personal pressure, didn't bring the law in on it ourselves, and we were fortunate that he agreed. He said, well, if you get somebody to tell us what it's worth, he said, we'll reimburse your mother. And that's what we did. But it was a long, drawn-out process, and that was so minuscule compared with what some of these timber folks are dealing with. When I hear about them coming in and finding that their timber's been cut and it's gone, and they have no idea who did it. And even if they do the research and find out, they can't get a conviction. It's just sad. And we realize from the University of Kentucky has done a lot of work on this and put out educational material, and it sounds real good that, oh, if somebody's trespassing on your farm and they found out that they have cut timber on your farm, it's not just that they pay for one log, but they have to pay 3 times for that. Well, that sounds good, but to get it to the point where the theft is going to actually pay that, it's just not that easy to get done. And it's a real problem. We're working on it, and we want to support any action, any efforts that can resolve this theft that's going on across our state.